All right. There we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. We are your weekly look into the wide, wacky, wonderful world of mixed martial arts. Get up there, you. My name is Robert Winfrey, and I am your host, per usual. So, thank you all very much for tuning in. Coming in live, coming after the fact, however that goes. It is, uh, technically, to my mind, it's still Mother's Day. So, the 10th of May, 2026. Okay, we kind of just barely kicked over into Monday. So if you want to be pedantic, but I still, until I sleep, I think of it as the previous day because I'm a night owl and have been for a long time, and that helps me best function. So that's where we are. Today, what do we got? Well, we're going to review UFC 329, which, you know what? Despite New Jersey being terrible, Daniel Cormier called them out for it. Then I imagine got read the riot act by a producer. One, he wasn't wrong, but two, they are still under the old rules, which is really dumb. I don't know why I forget their reasoning for that, but it was so weird because New Jersey's generally been one of the more adaptive, progressive, not in the political sense, but in the like progressing forward kind of senses of athletic commissions. And they were apparently that last group, they were like, no, we can't change what it means to be downed. You'll get kneed in the head, and we can't have 12 to 6 elbows. They might kill people, or they're just pissy that they weren't I don't know. Stupid, stupid. But all in all, a pretty good night of fights. Not great, pretty good. More on that in a bit. We will also look ahead because this coming Saturday we have UFC Fight Night. What are we up to? 276. UFC's back in the warehouse. They're bringing actually a good main event. Arnold Allen versus Melquiades Costa is a good fight. Just everything else on that card kind of sucks. But we'll give it the old preview, and then, of course, any news that happened to strike my fancy. And yeah, y'all know the drill by now. So thank you for tuning in again. Again, live after the fact. I'm good either way. I just appreciate the heck out of anyone who listens to me ramble. So thank you. With that out of the way, let's jump into this, shall we? So UFC 328. Let's start with the prediction result, and I feel bad saying that I went perfect when I changed my mind on two fights after the fact, and I had to amend one of my rules. Um, so let me address which ones I changed because I went 13-0, which I've never done before. I feel pretty good about that. I don't think it'll be a regular thing. And look, if all I wanted was to like artificially inflate numbers, then I would have done that a long time ago. So you're kind of just stuck with my personal integrity on this. The Van and Tyra fight, I swapped to Van after rewatching the last couple of Tyra fights for two very specific reasons. One, Tatsuro Taira's defense on the feet is still not good. He just doesn't move his head. And that's a bad thing to do against Joshua Van, who is throwing. Somebody posted the statistical analysis on this. Like Joshua Van has thrown more has like thrown more, I think, significant strikes, both maybe, than Max Holloway did at comparable points in their career. Like Joshua Van is throwing out offense at an insane clip. It is wildly anomalous statistically, just hugely outside the norm. Now, Max still has a couple of singular performances that very, very, very much boost his record. But I think he's like one of the fastest guys to reach 1,000 strikes. So your defense has to be relevant against a guy with that kind of offensive potency, and Tyra doesn't have it. The other thing, and that wasn't too much of that was part of a question mark, but the other thing was like, what happens when they hit the mat? And rewatching Tyra's last couple of fights, two things became clear to me. One, he's very, very good, but all of his offense on the ground is predicated on having the back. Now, his passing game is very good. He passed Joshua. We'll get into the specifics of the Van fight in a bit, but he passed very well here. But his ground and pound is anemic unless he's on your back. Then he doesn't mind opening up a little bit. But even from full mount, he just doesn't throw a whole lot. A lot of what he does is trying to get you to the position that he wants you in. And that also struck me as a bit of a point of failure. Like, if Van's hip to this, he can just not give up his back. There's other ways to deal with what Taira does and have some more success, because Taira's not going to be an offensive powerhouse on the ground from most positions on top. He's more focused on passing than he is doing damage. And that's a choice. Like all things in MMA, it's a choice. There's positives and negatives to it. So I went back to Van on that. I did not go with Joaquin Buckley. I know I said last week, like, I might just go with whoever's the favorite. Then the odds got weird. And when the odds get weird, I'm allowed to rethink a few things. So Buckley went from I think it was like a plus, it was like plus 180, plus 150 dog to a minus 220 favorite in the course of like a day. That's weird. So I was waiting for the UFC to pull the fight. When they didn't, that usually means sometimes this is just people being stupid with their money in large numbers. So I stuck with Brady on that one. That played out very well for me. The big one last week, I said I was leaning Khamzat. I have a couple of conditions under which I'm allowed to change my mind on picks. One of them is related to weight and the weigh-ins. If anyone misses weight or there's a change of weight class, I am allowed to reevaluate my decision. Officially, Khamzat made weight. I saw that video. They handled that very, very poorly. The whole week, I'd been looking for an excuse to change my pick, because a lot of very, very smart people were kind of talking me into Strickland. I said last week, like, I can see how Strickland wins this fight. Like, his path to victory was not obscured. The question is whether or not he could get to it. Then I'm just listening to guys talk. Dean Thomas said a bunch of stuff that was favorable to Strickland. Dustin Poirier, guys who really know what they're talking about. Ray Longo, very, very, very well known, very well respected MMA coach. He did the Morning Combat pregame preview, and he said, "Yeah, I think Strickland gets it done." And I take Ray Longo very seriously, and frankly, so should you if you don't. Dricus du Plessis said, "Yeah, he was picking Strickland. That the first round would be very, very informative. That Khamzat was going to get Strickland down, but keeping him down is a whole other ball game, and Strickland was maybe going to be physically stronger than Khamzat." And a bunch of people kind of clowned on him, but lo and behold, DDP might fight like a drunken sailor, but the man knows what he's not a dummy. He knows what's up. Strategically, maybe not, and there's things there, but like, the man knows what he's talking about. So there were enough people just talking that I kind of went, give me an excuse, man. Give me any reasonable excuse. And then on the scale, that thing was not settled at all. There's kind of a long history of this in MMA where somebody that you really just don't want to miss weight gets a little bit of a benefit of the doubt on the old mechanical scales there. It kind of happened with Khabib when he fought in his last fight, actually, with Justin Gaethje. It happened with Matt Hughes. I hate to say a lot, but it happened with Matt Hughes back in the day. It's just a thing. And it happened with Khamzat here. Like, that was handled very, very poorly by the athletic commission. I do not believe he weighed 185 on that scale. I don't. I don't think he was, 220 or something ridiculous, but 188, that seems very reasonable to me, actually, that he was in the like, kind of I don't think he was at like 186, because it would have reacted a little bit differently. But he was not at 185. Just put it like that. That's what it looked like to me, at least. And that was it. That was enough for me. Like, he looked terrible on the scale, and then to, like, I don't think he actually hit the number. That's enough for me to go, okay, I switched to Strickland. Like, I saw that and just Strickland. So ultimately, finally got a perfect card. I've never had one before that was perfect prediction. So as far as ones I'm proud of on this card, my picks go. There were a couple of dogs that I picked. Brady was technically a dog, so sticking with him didn't feel super special. Van was a dog, but only a slight one. And again, rewatching the tape, that became clearer to me. Jim Miller was a dog, and I was happy with that. Kopylov, I feel okay about that. I feel pretty good about that, which is weird because Kopylov made some very, very odd decisions, but still got the win. Any other of those that I just felt really good about picking? It really kind of is like the Kopylov Miller back-to-back thing that I went, you know what? Maybe I'm not completely full of crap. Yeah, switching to Strickland was, I mean, we got to that fight and I've had, perfect to that point. I'm at that point, I'm like, okay, there's no way I get this. And I would feel very, very bad getting it kind of that way, but fight played out like it played out. So we'll get into the specifics, but year to date, that now brings me to 144, 44, and 3 with 1 no contest. So I am I wish it had been a little cleaner as far as making all my predictions last week. The Strickland one, man, I just that weight, that scale, that weigh in from Khamzat was just kind of what tipped me over the edge. The others, I'm fine with how that played out. Like I said specifically, Van and Taira, I had to check a couple of things, and I did, and it led me to going with Van. But anywho, that's the predictions. You're not here to see me pat myself on the back or break my arm doing so I am not going to anymore. As for the fights themselves, main event for the middleweight title, Sean Strickland defeats Khamzat Chimaev via split decision. There's 48-47, so 2 of those for Sean, 1 for Chimaev. Live, I thought the 5th round was the swing round. In fact, that's what the judges thought too. The other 4 rounds were unanimously scored. Round 1 to Khamzat, very easy to score. Round 2 to Strickland, also very easy to score. Round 3 went to Strickland officially. Round 4 to Khamzat. That round 4 is not super hard to score either. And then round 5, which I thought was, which I kind of thought was a swing round, but, and again, live it was. Rewatching the fight, round 3 is actually the round that I think should have been the swing round. Again, on rewatch, round 5 is much clearer for Sean Strickland. It really comes down to round 3. So that's where we are with that. As for the fight itself, let's get into a couple of the. Before I talk about the aftermath, let's talk about the fight. So Khamzat comes out and they do a little bit of jabbing, and then he shoots, he gets Strickland down, but he can't do anything with it. He keeps him down all around. He gets the back at some point. Like, he's doing fairly normal stuff. But Strickland never lets him settle. Never lets him just have a position. He's always fighting. He's always making him work. He's making him hit mat returns. He's making him do all kinds of stuff. And it's a clear round for Chimaev, but that's kind of the first round you need to have against Chimaev if you're going to win, because I don't think anybody's going to beat him in the first round. I mean, it might happen, especially if he goes up in weight, but you're probably going to drop the first round to that guy. So what do you want it to look like? You want it to look like this. You take no damage. You're not really threatened. You make him do a lot of work. And that leads to how the rest of the fight plays out. Round 2, Khamzat is all out of sorts. He fails a couple of takedown attempts. He pulls guard twice. Once really badly near the end of the round, and Strickland does a lot of Strickland stuff. I was worried that we were going to get like a third round stoppage if Khamzat came out like he did again in the second, because he looked terrible. Like his legs were gone. Anytime he was on his back, like there's ways you can tell people on their back that are engaged, and then you can tell people are just kind of hanging out there sucking wind. And he was just sucking wind. So, but he gets his legs a little bit back under him, especially the back end of the third round. Like the last, I don't know, 90 seconds or so of that round, he really starts coming back alive. But the first half or more of that round, he's still getting jabbed up. Round 4, Khamzat, still very little wrestling. But round 4, he does a better job of kind of getting his offense going. And then round 5, we're back and forth. But Chimaev's offense in round 5 was a lot more limited. He got a couple of takedowns, but again, nothing to them, and they didn't lead to any lengthy control segments. And round 5, he just kind of doesn't land nearly as much. Like a lot of his overhands and whatnot are much more effectively deflected. And yeah, so ultimately, Chimaev's defense was not, I'd say not like, it wasn't bad, but he was doing a lot of he was doing kind of the high guard, but there's different ways of doing the high guard. You've got, earmuffs. You've got the peekaboo style, which is here. He was a little bit more here. So, sorry, weird. He's kind of like right here with a lot of his defense. And Strickland's jab just all the time went right into the middle of that, just over and over and over again. What Chimaev did that was kind of effective is, okay, this is a bit of an old tradition. You don't have to be the better jabber to jab with somebody. This is true of leg kicks. This is the thing with like Jose Aldo for a long time. No one wanted to kick his legs because he's such a dynamic leg kicker. Well, it turns out having a good offensive leg kick is not the same as having good leg kick defense. I mean, I'm not saying Aldo's was terrible, but they're not the same thing. And if you get to like we're just going to stand here and trade leg kicks with a harder kicker, yeah, that's probably not going to go your way. But integrating it as part of your whole against someone who's very good at it is actually a good strategy. You can do the same thing with the jab. Better jabbers can wind up on the wrong end of the equation, jabbing with someone who's not as good if they know how to build off of it and what they're doing with it. So Chimaev just jabbed with Strickland for long portions of this fight because neither man does a lot of head movement when they're jabbing. Neither guy does dipping jabs. Sean's coming at you like, he's not actually sideways, but he's coming at you out of here and kind of poking that out. Chimaev's coming from here, and neither one is off to the side and throwing. We're not doing one of these. It's just coming out. My head's right here. So they just kept punching each other in the face a lot. But yeah, jabbing with, even if the other guy's the better jabber, jabbing with him to help set up other stuff is a good idea. Chimaev just never got a whole lot of other stuff going. He did a little bit, but yeah, I mean, Strickland's offense was almost just to the head. I mean, almost exclusively. He threw very few teeps, which I kind of get. You don't want to get run over by a, tackle machine, an offensive powerhouse like Chimaev, but he didn't punch the body almost at all. That was a little bit surprising to me. Strickland didn't throw a lot of rights. He threw some, but not a lot. And then, we found out a little bit why after the fight when he said, yeah, I, separated my shoulder like 4 days ago. I think he said it suffered like a grade 1 AC tear. Yeah, that's a big deal, and that will stop you from throwing your right hand too much. I completely understand that. But when he did throw it, it landed because he was, again, Chimaev's here and occasionally gets it like this. That still leaves, this space here for small glove punches to wrap around in and to find that opening by the side there. So when Strickland would land those, like the openings were there. He was able to find them. He just didn't have the same offensive output that he has in other fights. Yeah, and Chimaev just, dude, if you make that guy work, his cardio doesn't hold up. I mean, he doesn't have 5 rounds of grappling cardio. I'm not trying to insult the guy because grappling cardio is insane. If you've never seen people like wrestle hard, it's nuts. It's some of the most cardiovascular intensive stuff you can actually do. It's crazy. And Strickland just made him work. When he fought, DDP, even when Chimaev fought Usman, he just got good positions, and Usman kind of conceded them for long stretches when Chimaev can then not expend a ton of energy to maintain the position and do a little bit of work. Also, previously, like with DDP, Chimaev got to good positions early. He didn't have to work all that hard to hold him, and that he can do over and over and over again. But if you make him really, really work for it, that falls apart for him quickly. That is not sustainable. Add on to that what seemed to be a very, very terrible weight cut. And his only hope was like, all right, I can't really wrestle. My legs aren't quite all the way there. I'm going to have to slug it out with this guy. And beating Sean Strickland in kind of a, jab fest, point fight, trench warfare kind of thing, where we're just going to be kind of in the pocket and doing our thing. Like almost nobody beats him at that. Strickland's real good in that spot. Like if Strickland can make you fight his fight, very, very few people beat him under those conditions. Very few. So heck of a win for Strickland, man. He's only the second guy to reclaim the middleweight belt. That belt, regaining a UFC title at all is difficult. Not impossible, but very, very difficult. I mean, it's a finite. It's actually a fairly small number of fighters who have lost a belt and then regained it. Because Randy Couture did it, Tim Sylvia did it. Heavyweight division was so bad at that point. I almost don't know if I want to count that, but he deserves the recognition. Sylvia did it. Cain Velasquez did it. Stipe did it. Heavyweight's a little bit weird in that respect. Light heavyweight, John technically did it. He never really lost the belt, but it was stripped and he had to get it back. So John Jones did it. In that same vein, technically Daniel Cormier, again, sort of, maybe, kind of. Pereira did it. Poetan. At middleweight, prior to this, it was only Izzy. I mean, Dave Monet never got it back. Evan Tanner never got it back. Rich Franklin never got it back. Anderson Silva never got it back. Chris Weidman never got it back. Luke Rockhold never got it back. Robert Whittaker never got it back. Bisping certainly never got it back. GSP never got it back. Whittaker never got it back. He got close in that Izzy rematch. Izzy got it back. He was the only one. Until now. He was the only two-time middleweight champion. I think welterweight GSP did. But I think he was the only. Hughes did. Hughes and GSP. Anyone else at welterweight? Because it was like, how's the history of that title go? It's like Miletich, Newton, Hughes. Hughes loses to Penn. Hughes gets it back. Hughes keeps it for a while, loses to GSP. GSP loses to Sarah. GSP gets it back. GSP goes on his big run with his second reign. Johnny Hendricks wins it, loses it, never gets it back. Robbie Lawler never gets it back. Woodley never gets it back. Usman never gets it back. Leon is not at the moment looking like he's going to get it back. Bilal hasn't gotten it back and probably won't. JDM is pretty far from it at the moment too. So that's kind of the loose history of the welterweight division there. So Hughes and GSP only. Lightweight. Lightweight. Because the UFC retires that division for a while after Pulver leaves. When it comes back, Shirk wins it. Shirk gets stripped for steroids. BJ Penn wins it. BJ Penn has his run. Edgar wins it. Edgar never gets it back. Benson Henderson takes it off of him. Benson Henderson doesn't get it back. Bendo loses it to Pettis. Pettis never gets it back after dropping to RDA. RDA doesn't get it back after he loses to Alvarez. Alvarez drops it to Connor. Fun fact about the lightweight division. Want a real fun fact about the lightweight division? That fight, Conor McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez. That's the last time the UFC lightweight title changed hands in the cage. That's a wild set. Because think about it after the fact. Conor never defends. Khabib wins the vacant belt. Khabib retires with it. Oliveira wins the vacant belt. Oliveira loses the belt on the scale. Islam wins the vacant belt. Islam vacates and moves up to welterweight. Topuria wins the vacant belt. That belt has not actually just changed hands in the cage since Conor McGregor beat Eddie Alvarez. The number of people watching MMA right now who were never even didn't even watch that fight happen live is probably large. That's kind of wild. So featherweight, Aldo got it back, Volk got it back. I think they're the only two that got it back though. Max never got it back. Conor never got it back. The featherweight belt is actually like legitimately maybe the most prestigious belt in the UFC. If you look at who's held it, like Aldo comes in with it. Aldo loses to McGregor. Aldo gets it back. Aldo holds that forever until he loses to Max. Max holds it forever until he loses to Volk. Volk holds it forever until he loses to Ilya. Volk gets it back, and that's where we are right now. Like only greats have held that belt at featherweight. Bantamweight, we have a few more repeat champions: Cruz, Dillashaw, Jan. But I mean, those are three very, very, very good. Like that's kind of the point. It's really hard to get it back, and Sean Strickland just got it back in another fairly significant upset. I don't know if Sean Strickland is a genuine like Hall of Fame talent, but you can't look at what that man has done and say he's not potentially a Hall of Fame, that he doesn't have a Hall of Fame career. I saw someone, I think it was Luke Thomas's live chat after his like live recap. One of his community commenters said that Sean Strickland's like the Eli Manning of MMA. And I think that's a fairly accurate comparison. If you're not familiar with Eli Manning, I'm not as generally talented as Peyton, but always very good. Again, never the superstar that, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, his brother, a few other people were, but rock solid, did get 2 Super Bowl rings, and at least one of those was beating the Brady era Patriots. Like they didn't always get to the top, but had I'd say no problem, but like was unafraid to go over greater talent than him to get there. That's kind of where Strickland is historically, I think, at this point. Dude, he beat Izzy in a way that nobody expected. Nobody thought he was going to do that. Now he beats, the guy thought of as like kind of like the boogeyman. And I know this fight was close. Like 3-2 either way is a perfectly defensible scorecard. If you think that Chimaev won the third, I can see it. Especially on rewatch, I can see a case for him winning the third, but I scored it for Strickland, and that's kind of where we are. So yeah, again, I don't know that Strickland, again, like is Sean Strickland a Hall of Fame fighter in the sense that, Anderson Silva, Jose Aldo, Max Holloway, these like spectacular talents that make you sort of reimagine some of how fighting goes, anything like that? No, he's not. What he is rock solid everywhere. He is very hard to get down. He's very hard to hold down. On the feet, he doesn't have, singular knockout power, but he doesn't have pillow fists as a general rule. And all he does is jab and teep. Well, that's slightly overstated, not unfair, but slightly overstated. And maybe more importantly, stop him from doing it. Like, he doesn't need the fanciest, flashiest game in the world to win fights, to win big fights. I mean, when he beat Izzy, it's largely like 1-2 push kicks offensively. Defensively, he actually has a lot to offer that I think people are going to look at and try to emulate in some respects, because it's not impossible to hit him. Clearly, his nose was busted up. Khamzat got to him, but he's got really, really good defense. And MMA is a sport that, for some reason, continues to ignore the value of defense. But here he is, he will make you fight his fight, and all he has to do is be better than you enough. And when you have some of the accomplishments that he has, whether as an individual talent, like you're going to fire up a Sean Strickland highlight package anytime soon, probably not. But two-time champion, beating guys he was not supposed to beat. I didn't give him a shot against Izzy. Not one. I looked at that fight and I don't see how he wins. Shut me up. Here I could see how he was going to win, and that's how he won, because it wasn't super complicated to see the outline of what that was going to have to look like for him. But doing it was the hard part, and he did it. Like, he may have gotten a little bit of, I mean, he had to stop Fluffy Hernandez to get this shot, but he did. And that wasn't handed to him. Stopping Anthony Hernandez is not easy, and he did it. Then he, gets this shot leapfrogging Nasruddin Imavov, who is the more deserving contender, I think, in general. But Strickland has a win over Imavov too, so who knows? But he leapfrogs him, and yeah, it's a little bit of promotional favoritism there. But Imavov's last win was not as interesting as Strickland's last win. I mean, after Strickland beat Hernandez, a lot of us said, I think he might provide the more interesting test for Chimaev. We all said it. Or most of us said it. Turns out that was correct. So again, he gets that is the singular lucky break he gets, is that everyone kind of goes, okay, let's see. We think on paper you make for a more interesting challenge than Imavov. Let's see if that plays out. Then he had to go out there and actually fight Khamzat Chimaev with a bad shoulder, and he won. Like, there's a non-trivial chance he does wind up in the Hall of Fame off of the strength of those wins, because his middleweight career is actually pretty darn good. I mean, his only losses at middleweight are what? A really close split decision with Jared Cannonier that he should have won. To be perfectly frank about that. Let's find his move to middleweight. Yeah, he returns to middleweight in 2020. So he goes on a good winning streak there. Marshman, Allen, Jotko, Hall, Jack Hermanson. He gets knocked out by Poetan. Oh no. Whatever will your legacy do if you have a loss to Alex Pereira on it? The split decision with Cannonier, again, he should have won that. 3-fight winning streak, including the big title win over Israel Adesanya. Loses a split decision to DDP. Close fight. I scored it for Drickus, but close fight. Beats Paulo Costa. Loses to DDP again. Then beats Fluffy and beats Khamzat. Like, there are only two definitive losses for him at middleweight. Only two. Pereira knocking him out, and the second fight with DDP. That first fight with Cannonier, I think he should have won. That first fight with DDP, you could argue he won. Those are the only two serious losses for him the DDP rematch where DDP had that one handled. I don't know. He figured out how he wanted to attack Sean, and Pereira, who, is a monster. That's it. He's beaten everybody else. He's again, I it's going to sound weird when he maybe eventually gets in there, but what he's doing is deserving of that kind of recognition. It is insanely difficult to regain a title after you lose it. It is doubly, unless you're like Carlos Esparza, who for some reason you just have like Rose Namajunas' kryptonite. But I mean, that aside, it's really, really hard. And he did it beating a guy that we didn't think twice, guys that he was not supposed to beat. Two wildly different fighters, too. Like, you don't fight Israel Adesanya the same way you fight Khamzat Chimaev. They are about as far apart as you can get stylistically. And he beat them both. So I don't know what's next for him. Logically, Imavov. They fought once before. Imavov is the deserving number one contender. Dricus has to be very happy with this because I don't think he was ever going to beat Chimaev. But he can beat Sean Strickland and has. So that one's maybe out there. But those would be the two that make the most sense. And it should go to Imavov meritocratically. Like, it really should. I have a lot of, bizarre affection for Dricus because he's a weird fighter, and I have a soft spot for weird fighters who make it work. But I think he's got to win one before a title shot. But like, if he beats somebody, I don't even know who you might have him fight. But if he gets a win in the top, 10 space, yeah, he should get a shot after that. That doesn't seem unreasonable. But Imavov should be next. As for Chimaev, he said, I'm done with middleweight. He had bulked up. Apparently the plan, what the initial thought was he was going to bulk up and fight Yuri, I think it was, up at light heavyweight. So he's going to try his hand at light heavyweight. I think he will have good results at light heavyweight. He will not have exceptional results at light heavyweight. I think people are starting to figure him out. And that's not an impossible thing to come back from, but it is a thing you have to address. If his thought process is, I'm going to go do what I've been doing, just up at 205, it's a worse division. That's very true. But again, I think there's enough tape on him at this point that people have kind of, if you know what you're doing, if you're a coach who knows what he's doing, and Eric Nixick knows what he's doing, and a lot of other guys do too, but he was the one in this case. Like, there's enough ways to attack Chimaev's game at this point that he needs some kind of reset's a strong word. He needs more dimensions. He needs some wrinkles. He needs some stuff instead of just trying to do what he's been doing, because he may have blown the doors off of some guys, and he really did, but that has its limits once people start to get a handle on you, and I think people are starting to get a handle on Chimaev. The fact that Chimaev accomplished as much as he has after, very, very bad bouts of COVID and everything, like, I don't know. We'll see when he comes back. Which I imagine will be next year at some point, because that's just kind of how it goes with him. So that was your main event. A fight that I saw it described as simultaneously the most boring and interesting fight at the same time. Like, it wasn't very exciting, but if you looked at like tactically what was going on, some of the technical stuff going on, you were getting interesting answers to questions, especially about Chimaev. So it wasn't super exciting, but there was stuff being revealed to you there over the course of the fight that actually you do need to pay attention to. So that was it. And again, not a great fight, but I rewatched it to have another look at the scoring, and I think I was only able to really push through it because I was focused on, okay, scoring criteria and how I wanted to how it should be scored. Everything else, but like not super great. But speaking of super great, co-main event, Joshua Van and Tatsuro Taira had the fight of the night, one of the fights of the year thus far. This was great. Van wins via TKO, front kick to the body, some body shots, punches along the fence. 132 of the fifth round. These two had this was kind of a furious fight. Taira gets some grappling work done early. Now, a couple of things about Taira. He's still young. He took a bit of a beating here, but there was a spot in the third round when, like, oof, he got dropped real hard in that third round, which is weird because he was winning. He was like he won the first, lost the second, but he wasn't getting like smashed. But won the first, lost the second, was winning the third, and then Van hits him with a right hand that just floors him. He manages to recover somehow, and then I actually thought Taira won the fourth. So I actually had it 1-1 going into the fifth. Enough of the judges, two of the judges, I think, gave Van a 10-8 third. I was close to that, but Taira rallies the last like minute of that round, and I think did just enough to avoid a 10-8, but just from where I was sitting. But to the point about like where did this go wrong for Taira? He's young, so there's time to fix these things. But there's like a couple of big things he has to fix. First of all, he has got to get his defense dialed in. That poor man never moves his head. And Brandon Royval lit him on fire for that. Joshua Van did the same thing. Just you need defense. I don't know. I think I saw this somewhere else, but I'm going to repeat it because I think it's true. Like every Japanese fighter with good defense goes into boxing or kickboxing, probably because the money's better. But like, I mean, watch from last week. Like, watch Inoue and Nakatani. Like, those guys know defense. I mean, Inoue's been hit before, but in general, his defense, like, he knows how to be defensive. There's a bunch of Japanese MMA fighters who like view it as an insult to move their head. Like, I don't want to dishonor the work you put in camp by letting you not hit me. It's weird. Like, guys, defense, please stop getting punched in the face. He's got to fix that. That's like number one with a bullet. Fix your head movement. Or get your hand position better at least. He's got his hands here the whole time. Like, this isn't helping you, buddy. This is chest level. That's not helping you. Up. At least one of them, for crying out loud. So one, he's got to fix his defense. Like, seriously. Go to a boxing gym. I'm not even kidding. Like, find a good boxing gym and work with somebody there. Just a little bit of this, a little bit upper body movement, slip when you punch, slip on your entries, a little bit. Instead of just coming in straight and just boom, over and over and over again. The second thing that he really needs to address, he very much needs to find meaningful offense from top position that is not back mount. If he gets to your back, that's when he starts to do stuff. Anywhere else, his focus is passing and forcing you to let him pass. He had mount for long periods of time in this fight. Now, I'm not trying to kill him for not having tremendous ground and pound right away, but he didn't have almost any. I mean, you've got to fix that, man. Your positional movement is so good. His passing is so good. Just watch what there's times when he just cuts through Van's guard like it's not even there. he can get to these really good positions, but he's got to be more comfortable with offensive output in some of these positions that he just isn't right now. And it's leading to these long stretches of the fight where he's in real good control spots and is, again, positionally dominant, but not doing anything with it. And that's a bad way to go about this. Um, props to Van and his team for figuring that out too. And like Van almost never gives him his back. Like he very, very assiduously avoids any back exposure. He was happier to be mounted. Like, nope, you can have full mount. I will wait until I can work my way out of this. You're not getting my back because then you might actually do something. So they were he was well prepared. Very well prepared for that. Yeah, I mentioned it before, but like Van's striking output is insane. He is one of the fastest guys to reach 1,000 strikes landed in the UFC in terms of like fewest fights. He has thrown more strikes than Max Holloway in a comparable number of UFC fights, which is a mind-blowing statistic to me. Now, granted, Holloway's first, 8 fights, he wasn't what he turned into, but still, like that is an insane, utterly irrational trajectory to be on. Like, dude, it's nuts. Good body to head work. The body stuff is what ultimately put Taira down. Slightly quick stoppage, but I'm okay with it because Taira had absorbed a lot of damage to that point. If that had been the first time he was dropped and the referee jumped in like he did, I would not have. I'd be pissed. That would not have sat well with me. At the conclusion of everything else that had happened, I can see it. I can live with it. Really, really good fight. Needs to be said the following. If Taira was able to do some of the stuff on the ground that he was able to do here, Pantoja, when they first fought, Pantoja might have really had something for Van because Pantoja is not nearly as gun shy about dropping stuff on your head from half guard. And he's actually a little bit better about getting back exposure. He forces it in a different way. I shouldn't say he's better at it, but he forces it differently. Their fight, that rematch, assuming that's what happens, is still very, very intriguing to me. I said before, it was tragic what happened in their first fight because for as long as it lasted, which was short, but even in that brief window, we saw something really cool. So hopefully Pantoja's healed up and we can get that because that's probably what's next. And I think Pantoja still has very clear ways to win that fight. He's also a little bit older, though, and Van is continuing to improve. Dude, Joshua Van's pro debut was in, 2021? Like, it's insane. It's crazy how fast he's ascended. So we'll see what happens with that one, but good fight. Taira, he's got to fix some of those things. Now, as I said, he's young. He's got time. Fix your defense. Get your offense from top position working. You can probably get back to the title. Because there's a lot good about his game, but the holes in it are non-trivial and exploitable. So, but yeah, fight of the night, easily deserved it. Easily. Great fight. Not a great fight. Alexander Volkov defeated Waldo Cortez Acosta via unanimous decision, 229-28 and a 30-27. I don't get 30-27. Waldo should have got the third round. He didn't do much to win the first two, though. Dude, I said before, I wasn't sure why they were going with Volkov as the favorite. Then I rewatched both of their both of their last two fights, and I got it. It's not that Waldo couldn't win. This was not a lopsided favoritism for Volkov, but Waldo struggles with leg kicks. He throws decent leg kicks, but he struggles defensively with them. And Volkov throws a lot of leg kicks. Volkov's defense is pretty solid. Not impenetrable, but solid, especially lengthwise. And Waldo also struggles with guys who can manage distance. Um, he's got to be able to get into his range, and his navigation of range is iffy. He's done it largely because he's got decently fast feet for a heavyweight, not super fast, but decently quick, and the division being crap. But Volkov's smooth. Volkov's very, very consistent. And Volkov, he is a smart fighter. And he's not just smart, but he's smart and will just point fight his way. The dude point fought Greg Hardy, who's not good. But that was the safest, most consistent way to win. That's what he did. That's what he did here. He moved, he jabbed, he leg kicked, he body kicked. He made Waldo miss. He made Waldo look silly. And then Waldo kind of started doing stuff later, but too little, too late. Volkov should probably get. Here's the thing. I'd love to say Volkov should get the title shot next, but we don't know what's going on. Aspinall's still out. We've got Gon and Poeton. And we don't know if the winner of that is going to fight Aspinall in any sort of reasonable time frame. If they're going to strip Tom Aspinall, we don't know. Realistically, in a functional division, this would get Volkov a title shot next. Because the division doesn't function properly, who the heck knows? So that's where we are with that. Terrible fight, too. Like, just not good. Welterweight Sean Brady beat the brakes off of Joaquin Buckley, 30-25 twice in the 30-27. That 30-27 is wrong. Brady should have had a 10-8 at a minimum in the second round. Just takedowns, top control from Brady, good passing. He's got a really nice sequence dialed in from the top. He gets to half guard, and if you try to wrestle up on him, he threatens the guillotine. If you roll back towards your back to avoid the head wrap, he's in kind of position to start attacking a Kimura. If you fight that too much, you can either go back to the head or pass. Like he's just got a real good sequence and flow chart worked out from there. His ground and pound was almost funny. Just a lot of straight arm punches, then doing the monkey out there, like just doing the Donkey Kong hammer fist, but with nothing behind him. But Buckley struggled to get him off of him, and he could get up on occasion, he could make some separation, but Brady just kept after him. Buckley did not look good here. I'm not trying to be mean to the guy, but you take a year off and you get beat the same way you got beat last time, even worse. That's a troubling trend. Brady wants another guy in the top 5. That's probably fine. I hope that he should fight Jack Della Maddalena. I mean, they tried to make that fight, I think, at one point, and I was very interested in it. It didn't happen for any number of reasons. They might also move JDM a little bit further down, but I mean, Brady came out after the fact and like, yeah, that loss to Michael Morales was a fluke. No, it wasn't. Dude, respectfully, you don't react well to getting hit. You tried to take Michael Morales down, but because he's enormous, someone said, like, Michael Morales is not a weight bully. He's a weight terrorist. He is enormous. He walks around at like 220. He is huge. And he's big. He's long. You tried to take him down, failed, couldn't close distance at all on a guy who could hit you from the next county over, and you got clubbed in the head. That's not a fluke. That's a terrible matchup for you that I don't think you're ever going to win. That said, I do think Sean Brady is still one of the better welterweights. He's just got some pretty severe limitations, which is not the end of the world, but can't pretend it's not true. The problem is, like, he already lost to Morales. I don't really want to see him in Prochess yet. but that is a direction. I mean, the thing is, like, he's beaten Leon Edwards. He just beat Joaquin Buckley. He's lost to Bilal. He's lost to Morales. Like, he's in a weird spot. And I'm not sure exactly what they're going to do with him. Again, you got JDM as a possibility. Welterweight's got a lot of talent. It's just how are you going to kind of apportion the matchmaking. And, let me check. I want to see who should Sean Brady fight? Let's take a look at welterweight here. You could rematch Bilal. I mean, he wants to fight up. The problem is you've got Islam at the top, and that ain't happening. You got Ian Gary at number 1, who's probably getting the next shot. Prochas at 2, who might leapfrog Gary because Prochas is awesome. Morales, who beat the crap out of Brady. Then JDM and Bilal already beat Sean Brady. So they might try the rematch with Bilal just because it's a thing to do. Bilal's he's coming off of 2 losses, right? Well, Bilal's going to be fighting Gabriel Bonfim, okay. But I think he's on he lost to Jack Della Maddalena and Ian Machado and Ian Gary. Right. There was a 2-fight losing streak. So if Bilal beats Bonfim, I think Brady and Bilal in a rematch is not outside the realm of possibility. If Bonfim beats Bilal, I actually think Brady and Bonfim is probably the way to go. But like, he's just we're in a weird spot with welterweight. There's a lot of good guys. There's a lot of I'm not going to complain if we get Prochas and Brady, but I think we're more likely to get Prochas and Morales. And again, Morales not only beat Sean Brady, he beat him in such a way that I don't know that a rematch would even be worthwhile. It wasn't an early blitz from Morales where he didn't have to answer any questions. Like, he stopped Sean Brady from doing anything, then hit him really hard in the head, and Sean Brady fell apart. I don't know what would be different in a rematch. Sean Brady's going to have to do the same thing. He's still going to have to try and navigate that enormous distance on a big, strong, rangy guy who's going to stop him from taking him down because he's having to shoot from a mile away. Because if he tries to get closer to shoot, he's going to walk into punching range and get punched in the face and fall apart again. Because Michael Morales is that guy. Anyway, like I said, a really good win for Sean Brady. He needed this one and got it. So I don't know exactly where things go at welterweight, but a rematch with Bilal or, again, the Bonfim fight, as previously indicated, doesn't seem outside the realm of possibility. And kicking off the main card, King Green beat the crap out of Jeremy Stevens. Beat him everywhere. Beat him on the feet, baited him at overswinging, double-legged him, got on top. Really nice ground and pound. Got Stevens to give up the back, got the choke. King Green then went over to the UFC brass and went, "Hey, I'd like a bonus. I should have got one for my last fight. I should get one for this fight." He didn't get a bonus, spoiler alert. Which is unfortunate, but at the same time, I can't complain with the guys who they did give the bonus to. We'll get to that in a minute, but that said, the UFC, because Dana White said, yeah, well, we'll do something nice for Bobby Green. He wants custom trunks. We'll give him custom trunks. Instead of paying him $100,000 that you could easily afford, you miserly waste of space, you give him a thing that he should be able to do anyway. UFC, what are you going to do? So, in fairness, Bobby Green said, like, I'd like to have the red, white, and blue, Apollo Creed boxing trunks, kind of for MMA, which would be cool. But for crying out loud, like the number of crappy things that should be readily available to fighters anyway that the UFC will pretend is their magnanimity in exchange for hoarding more and more of the revenue is shocking to me. One of these days, we're not that far from them saying, "Yeah, you know what? We couldn't give you a bonus, but we'll let you pick your walkout music next time." We're this close to that. Good win for Green. Stevens missed weight and hasn't won in the UFC since before COVID. Hasn't won in MMA since 2021 when he won a PFL fight. I don't know what we're doing here with Jeremy Stevens. So that was your main card. Important but lackluster main event from an entertainment standpoint. Great fight between Taira and Van. Not the best flyweight title fight ever, but probably top 5. Because number 1 is probably still Pantoja Moreno. Then the first Figueiredo and Moreno fight. Then like you can just throw any Pantoja fight in there almost. Probably Pantoja Urseg might be up there for just like back and forth quality fights. So this one might be better than Pantoja Urseg. So we're probably like top 3, top 5 flyweight title fights. On the prelims, Ateba Gautier defeated Ozzy Diaz via TKO punches, 110 of the second. Ateba Gautier is still just killing people. I'm fine with them taking their time and letting him develop. There's still a few things I need to see out of him. He's a little one-dimensional in terms of like the delivery of his offense. He can make it work. God bless him for it. And again, he's a work in progress, and that's fine as long as we all understand what's going on there. But it does need to be said that he's a work in progress, and he is. Got a good finish here, but let's get a little bit of like offensive dynamism going instead of just power. Welterweight. Oh man, Yaroslav Amosov handled Joel Alvarez. Gets him with an arm triangle choke, 113 of the second. After, again, pretty easily handling him in the first. Hit a really sweet mat return to close out the first round. Yeah, he's got the back, rear waist lock. And he did a version of kind of the Piotr Jan like split stance mat return. So the way Jan and plenty of other people do this, but I've seen him do it a lot, so I use him as my reference point. You have the rear waist lock, then you drop into a split. So hypothetically, like your left leg goes forward, your right leg goes back, and you kind of swing them down because your weight's going down, and you bring them back over the leg. It's a little bit of a trip, a little bit of a mat return. It's a nice technique. Feel free to it's a really good technique. Amosov does kind of the same thing, but instead of dropping to a split, he hops in the air and then doesn't come down on his feet. He like goes all the way to his knees. So his entire body weight is now yanking Alvarez back by the waist. And kind of just slings him over. It was gorgeous. Second round, he again gets another takedown. Nearly gets the back. Alvarez kind of tries to wrestle up against the fence, but stands up into an standing arm triangle, pancake down, choke in. Yaroslav Amosov is real good. Those of us who watched him in like Bellator and whatnot knew that. Not every one of his fights was a barn burner, but we knew he was good. He's really like started clicking in the UFC. I don't know what it is, but he is starting to manifest the best version of his game. And he cut through Alvarez here without almost any issue. He wants to fight top guys next. Yeah. I don't know who exactly, but he should be fighting up in the ranks after this, not down. Good stuff from Amosov. Lightweight Grant Dawson got Mateusz Rembeszki with a rear naked choke, 442 of the third. Pretty standard Grant Dawson fight. Rembeszki ate kind of a head kick early and started bleeding because you look at Rembeszki hard enough and he starts to bleed. Yeah, just typical Grant Dawson performance. If you've seen one of his wins, you've kind of seen them all. He had a really nice finish to the choke, though. I want to give him credit for that because there's a lot of grips to use to finish a rear naked choke. I mean, the ideal one is the figure four, but if this is still the choking arm, you can go palm to palm here. You can go S grip. I think that would be the ideal S grip, but it might be this one that's better. I forget which way it is better for that, but there's actually it does matter whether you're this way or this way, depending on what the choking arm is when you do that. I think you want this way because that keeps that flat, and if you go upside down here, then you're trying to like choke with the inside. But he went with a different version. He got this arm around the neck, and he kind of still had the fingers and the bicep here, but he didn't have it. This arm didn't go behind the head. This arm then wrapped in front of the face, and he kind of just was able to squeeze that down. And that's a real nasty way to finish that choke if you know how to do it properly. So it was a nice finish. Mechanically, that's a nice finish to that choke. Look, Dawson's a very good fighter, but there is zero hype behind him. Most of his fights look kind of like this. He should probably fight a ranked guy next, but his chin is still a bit of an issue, and anyone that can kind of force him not to wrestle for long periods of time has a lot of success against him. I mean, that's how Manuel Torres beat him. So that's that. Like, he's probably due a slightly bigger fight, but I don't know. I just can't. I have a hard time getting excited. I acknowledge Grant Dawson's skill, but I have a hard time getting like, yeah, can't wait to see that fight. Jim effin Miller. Guillotine chokes Jared Gordon opportunistically off of a takedown, 3:29 of the first. Bless Jim Miller, man. I mean, he got out there and he told the story. I mean, this came to light during media when he was talking about, yeah, it's been a real pain in the butt to get health care for my kid who's been fighting cancer, who did beat it, cancer free now, thank God. But dude, you've got a guy who's been in the UFC forever, has more fights in the organization than anyone, out at media day, sort of unintentionally saying, yeah, the pay sucks because I can barely afford health care for my cancer fighting son. And I'm fighting in the UFC. Bad look, man. Bad look. A lot of bad looks for the UFC. I mean, to kind of that same point, like Dana White went on it's a fairly popular like radio show. Is that the one that Charlemagne? What's it called? Oh, probably something like Breakfast Club. I genuinely don't remember. I've seen clips of it. I've never watched a whole show. But the host there is he's talking with Dana White, and he actually does kind of hit him with some serious questions. The big one, and the one that I think in a sane reality would actually haunt Dana White a little bit. This guy says, like, the UFC is worth billions of dollars at this point. How is it acceptable for fighters in your organization to have second jobs? And Dana's response is just, I'm sure there's guys in the NBA and the NFL who have second jobs while they're trying to make it, and my head about exploded. So I'm gonna get back to Jim Miller in a second, I promise, but I got to talk about this. The NBA is making it, Dana. The minimum salary for an NBA rookie is $1.2 million a year. For a rookie who may never go off the bench. Like, that's not even someone they're really anxious to sign necessarily. That's league minimum. $1.2 million a year. You're signing UFC rookies, not MMA rookies necessarily, but you're signing UFC people to the UFC for 12 and 12 for like 6 fights. It's 12 and 12, and if you win, it might go up to like 15 and 15. And then maybe 20 and 20. But like, you got to win to get the graduated scale. You're bringing talent into the UFC, paying them pennies. And your defense of this is people trying to grind their way into the NBA or into like Major League Baseball from the minors have to have real jobs too. Is your position then, sir, that the UFC does not constitute the highest level of success in MMA. Getting to the UFC is not making it. What is making it? Is it being a champion? Because you have former champions, you have current champions with side gigs. Pantoja still drives, I think, like Uber Eats. One of your women's champions has an OnlyFans. What's making it, sir? So we got Tristan tuning in. I am going over the results from UFC 328 at the moment. We're on the prelims. Feel free to bounce back via the player if you want to get to the whole thing, but that's where we are at the moment. Or just hang in and then tune in later, hang out for the rest of the live and then back it up later. I don't know, however you want to do that, but that's where we are at the moment. So yeah, Dana White, bad luck for the UFC in a lot of respects this week. Yeah, he went on one of the random radio shows that like didn't softball him questions. And he handled himself not great, if you know anything about actual answers and rhetoric. But yeah, Miller he and Gordon traded a few punches. Gordon tries a takedown. Miller grabs a guillotine, gets the tap. Yeah, dude, Jim Miller is going to go into the Hall of Fame. And if you're going to put Donald Cerrone in the Hall of Fame, Jim Miller 1,000,000% deserves to be there. He has been a consistently entertaining fighter. He's been part of some very, very great fights. If you've never seen his fight with Joe Lozon, the first one, look it up. Thank me later. Wonderful fight. There was a time when I think Jim Miller was among the 5 or so best lightweights in the world. It's been a long time, but there was a time when he was. He's just still out here getting it done. He's looking at maybe surpassing 50 UFC fights. In fact, this was the last fight on his deal. The UFC signed him to 5 more, which they said if he goes through with all of them, would take him to 51 UFC appearances. Not appearances or that wins. I got to double check this with old Jim Miller here. Tristan Chummy and Jared Gordon has to be one of the dumbest all time in UFC. No. Believe me, not the biggest fan of every one of his decision making things, but guys, we're about to talk about like Marco Tullio and Roman Kopylov in the near future. I mean, there's a lot dumber fighters than Jared Gordon. A lot. So let me have a quick look here. Yeah, Miller at the moment has most fights in UFC history at 47. Yeah, I think he's going for. So he'd be going for like 51 total appearances. I mean, he's got so many He's got so many things. He has the most wins in UFC history at 28. He has the most wins in lightweight history at 25. He has the most bouts in UFC history at 47. He has the most lightweight fights in UFC history at 44. That may be what they're talking about, is if he can. He could pretend with. So that should be like 45. So he could get to the point being like if he goes to every fight through his current deal, he'll get to 51. He has the second most finishes in UFC history. He has the most finishes in lightweight history. He has the most submissions in lightweight history. Actually, he has the second most submission. He has the second most submission wins in all of UFC history. Thoughts on the next opponent for Miller? I don't know. These kinds of fights. Like, he's way away from the elite level at this point. Other veterans, guys like Jared Gordon, this kind of level is where he should be fighting at this point. I don't have a specific name. Yeah, it's like when it's all said and done, Jim Miller's going into the Hall of Fame. It will be a great day because he's awesome. His longevity, his success rate, the great fights, not a bad thing to be said about the man. Like there was a debate a while back, I know, about whether or not Jim Miller was a Hall of Famer. This was like a couple of years ago, maybe at this point. And one of the arguments against it was he's just compiled a lot of stats through longevity, but has he actually really achieved all that highly? And I think there's a fair line and a fair bit of discussion to be had. The general pushback that I saw and the one I agree with is Donald Cerrone is in the UFC Hall of Fame. If Donald Cerrone's career was a Hall of Fame career, Jim Miller's career is a Hall of Fame career. That's not super complicated from where I sit. So, yeah, win for him. I was happy. Roman Kopylov defeated Marco Tulio via unanimous decision, 29-28. Good first round for Tulio. Kopylov really struggling to get going. Then he cracks Tulio near the end of the second with a left hand that could have got a finish if Kopylov hadn't then just held on. Then the third round, he hurts him again and again, just like, I'm going to clinch you against the fence. There is finish potential here for Kopylov, and he chose to hurt someone and then grab. Hold on. Ice out the clock. It got him the win, but weird choices. I agree with you. Miller has underrated wins. Yeah, dude. Let me take half a second with Jim Miller's career wins, and we can talk through some of the really good ones. Because if we go all the way back to his debut, the Matt Wyman win in a fight of the night was good. He lost to Gray Maynard. He beat Mac Danzig. His armbar over Dwayne Ludwig is real good. That's from 2010. The Gleison Tebow fight's good. Yeah, dude, he beat Gleison Tebow, who was a tough roadblock for everybody. He knee barred Charles Oliveira and tapped him out in 2010. The Kamal Shalarus win was good. Lost to Bendo. Beat Melvin Gillard. Lost to Nate Diaz. Beat Joe Lozon in that fight of the night, fight of the year. Camois, Medeiros. He loses to Cerrone. Loses to Dariush. Beats Castillo. Loses to Chiesa. Loses to Sanchez. That was a weird one. Yeah. Oh, he stops Gomi. He beats Lozon again. He beats Thiago Alves. Beat Clay Guida. I mean, again, not like it's 2019 by that point, so it's not like the greatest win, but he choked him out. He beat Cerrone in their rematch. That was at welterweight. Yeah, he choked Cerrone out with a guillotine. It was wild. I remember that. Yeah, like he's fought a lot of really, really good guys, and he has some really, really good wins. So it's a shame he never fought for the belt. There was a time like the Benson Henderson fight was kind of the one that if he'd won that, he would have got a title fight off of it. But Bendo at that point was on his major tear. So, but dude, what's Benson Henderson doing now? I mean, respectfully, a lot of respect for Bendo's career. I think he's a sadly forgotten fighter. But Jim Miller has seen. He was a veteran when Conor showed up, and he's still out there doing the darn thing when Conor's basically gone. He was here for all of Khabib's career. Like that dude has seen the rise and fall of empires, and he's still here, just plugging away, setting reasonable goals for himself. Oh yeah, Benson about to be KO'd by Patrick Caboria, PFL. Maybe, yeah. Again, I think it's a shame that we don't talk about Benson Henderson as an all-time great lightweight because he absolutely is. But yeah, that's where he is now, and Jim Miller still in the UFC, still getting wins. Again, elite wins? No, probably not. And Jared Gordon got the shaft in that Paddy Pimblett fight. He should have won that fight. I will die on that hill. Like the judges screwed him in that one. But anyway, I talked about Kopylov and Tulio. Featherweight, Pat Sabatini defeated William Gomez via unanimous decision, 230-27s, 129-28. Pat Sabatini is, if you've seen one of his fights, you've seen them all. He's got some nice mat returns from the back. I like the way he kind of iterates on the broomstick or the cheese donkey. But if you've seen if you've seen a Sabatini fight, you've seen a Sabatini fight. Watching him fight makes your eyes bleed. Dude, he and Grant Dawson are kind of the same fighter. He's good. He beats a lot of guys, but again, is there any excitement? And he's got some key losses that tell you where his ceiling is at the moment. Baisungur Susrakayev defeated Jordan Santos via technical submission, rear naked choke, 412 of the third. I am not sold on Susrakayev at all. He's got good kicks. His defense is lacking. His punching mechanics are poor. His punching power seems not to be super great. And when he can force you to fight the way he wants you to fight, he clearly can win. I'm not saying he's terrible, but I don't nearly believe in him the way I believe in some other guys of, somewhat comparable skill and experience, certainly comparable experience. There's just a lot in his game that is underdeveloped. And there's definitely time for him to develop it, but he's one of those fighters that is not going to learn until he learns the hard way, some of this stuff. And when Jordan Santos can land on you the way that he did, there's guys in that division who will make your life hell. Kind of thought Santos won rounds 1 and 2. I think he won. I think I gave him one of the rounds. I can't remember which one, but yeah, they were both close rounds. And look, might Susrakayev turn into something? Yes. He's not where he thinks he is. And again, he's one of these fighters who is just he's gonna think he's going to overestimate himself into a real bad situation. That happens all the time. And it's going to happen to him because he's only going to learn when that thing bites him, when that really bites him. And then we have to see if he learns. But he is not going to learn that absent learning it the hard way. And even then, he may just be obstinate about it. We'll have to wait and see when that happens, but there's still a lot of work to do there if he develops into anything at all. And kicking off the entire event, Jose Ochoa defeated Clayton Carpenter via unanimous decision, 30-27s. Good stuff from Ochoa. Ochoa's boxing and punching is real slick for MMA. He had a really nice combo. I think it was the third round. Level change right to the body, then while staying level changed, left up jab to the head, fall with a high kick. Good performance from Ochoa. And that was that. Your fight of the night, already mentioned, was Joshua Van and Tatsuro Taira. Easy call. Performance of the night was harder. They went with Jim Miller and Yaroslav Amosov. I'll mention it again. That is unfortunate for King Green. But I'm not going to argue. If you had given that to Green over Amosov, I think that's defensible. If you given it to Green over Miller, I would have been annoyed personally, but that's understandable. It just Green keeps turning in these like performances where he should get a bonus, and then somewhere else on the card is just something that edges it out. So no issues with Amosov and Miller. What do I think Amosov's ceiling is? Let me check something on Amosov here real fast. He's 32. The big problem that he's going to face is that he's at welterweight. I mean, he beat Neil Magny in short order. Good UFC debut. His win here, very, very good. Super impressive. He should be fighting up in class now. There's a decent chance that his ceiling is very near the top of the division. He doesn't have a tremendous amount of time. 32 is kind of the peak physically. But he's very experienced. He's got a lot of fights. He's very good. Not unbeatable, but there's a lot of guys in the above him that I think. Let me bring up the welterweight rankings again real fast. Because he was 14th, I think, coming into this. Yeah. I think he beats Medic. I think he beats Mike Malott. At this point, I think he beats Buckley. Top 10 is not at all out of the question for him. Let me start there. The current version of Leon Edwards, I don't know. I might favor him over this version of Leon. Might. At the moment, minimum top 10. There's a number of guys that I think in the top 10 or in that space that I think he can beat. A number of them. It would not shock me if he goes higher than that. Sal chiming in late to the party, but thumbs up. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate you liking the stream. And one of the beautiful things about, YouTube's player is you can back up and start over if you'd like, or you can hang out and come back later to get the earlier stuff. So late, early, I'm just glad you're here, man. So thanks for hanging out. So yeah, point being, Amosov's ceiling, pretty darn high, actually. Again, top 10 seems fair. Seems very doable for him at the moment. North of that, it gets tricky. Not impossible, but that gets very tricky. But put it this way, it would not shock me at all if Amosov is fighting in the top 5 in a year. That seems very doable. Again, a little bit matchmaking dependent and individual performance dependent, but if he does to, Uroš Medic or Leon Edwards what he did here, more or less, he's real good. Has been a real good signing for the UFC. And I mentioned, I think he's finally bringing to bear the best version of what his game can do. And that's a heck of a thing when it gets going. So I would not be shocked one little bit if he winds up a player at the top of that division. He's top 15 already. He will probably be fighting near the top 10 soon. He could be a very serious player in that weight class. I mean, they could match him and Buckley up at the moment. Amosov Brady. I think Brady won't want to fight down again. Is the only problem there. Because Amosov is not going to rocket up as high as Brady is in the rankings, and I think Brady wants to fight up. That said, if Amosov beats, Leon Edwards or someone comparable to that and then gets rocketed up a little bit, that fight on the horizon is not outside the question. I think at the moment they're a little bit too far apart for it to be next, but I wouldn't hate that fight. Not at all. Anyway, that's it for UFC 328. My full report, as always, is in the MMA Zone of 411mania.com. So go give that a read if you are so inclined. I appreciate the heck out of any of that. And boy, did 328 take up a lot of time. We spent a chunk of time on that one, but I knew it would take that time. So here we are. All right. Let's move on to something a little bit less interesting, but still worth talking about. UFC Fight Night 276. The UFC will be back in the Apex for this one, the old warehouse fights. As I fix the spreadsheet. There we go. The main event, that's my griping about it aside. Go away. I'm going to need a couple of things. The main event is very good. In your main event, we have Arnold Allen and Melquiades El Costa. It's a good fight. I might need you. Should I? Boy, we're gonna have a busy week next week. Holy crap. Bunch of Road to UFC stuff. We have the MVP Netflix card. There's that a little bit further out. No, why are you lying to me? There you are. 2 weeks. 2 weeks we're going to be real, but the end of this month is going to be nuts. But this coming one again, Arnold Allen and Melky Costa. That is a really good fight. That's about the last time I'm going to say that. Are there any regionals like LFA this weekend? Let me check. Tapology's good about keeping track of this. So let's see what we got. There's a KSW event. There's an Octagon event. One has a fight night. No one cares. LFA 232 is the 15th. That one's probably okay. Don't care about Zuffa Boxing. If you missed the Ryzen event, that was pretty good too, because Ryzen's good, but isn't an NFL player competing in the road to UFC? Let me check. Because the road to UFC stuff is coming up. Let's see, road to UFC. There's one coming up on the 28th. I don't think in the road to UFC that's usually reserved for like East Asian talent of a number of varieties. So like China, Japan, Korea, Indonesia, some of the oceanic regions. So not that one. Hang on, let me check the other one. Because the other one, they're in Macau. That's got Xi Ming on it. Let's see. Mongolia, China. I don't think so. There might be one in one of the Contender Series fights coming up, but I don't think in the road to UFC. Again, they tend to reserve those for, again, like East Asia, Southeast Asia, Oceanica. It's just Oceania. The Oceanic region. I forget the proper construction of that word. So, all right. Anyway, Allen and Costa. Let me focus on that for a second here. So again, good fight. I actually really like this fight. It's well matched. It's important. Arnold Allen is a somewhat chronically underappreciated guy in the weight class. Went undefeated in the UFC until he ran into Max Holloway in 2023 and gave Max a good fight. He lost cleanly, but gave him a good fight. The problem is like he's run into some tough stuff lately. He had a good streak going for a long time. The problem was there was a period of time when he had like had activity issues. He debuts in June of 15, doesn't fight again until February of 16, doesn't fight again until March of 17, doesn't fight again until May of 18, doesn't fight again until March of 19. Then 19 he's okay, March and July. But then doesn't fight again until January of 2020, doesn't fight again until April of 2021. Then fights March and October of 2022. So that gap from April to March is again about a year. Then once in 23, the loss to Holloway. He fights twice in 24, January and July, losing to Movsar Evloev, then beating Giga Chikadze. Then he lost to Jeon Silva in January. So he's just had activity issues that I think hampered him. And as he stepped up in class, he found some ceilings. Look, you lose to Max Holloway, zero shame. Max is all-time great. Evloev is maybe the best guy in that division right now. He might be the next champion. That's very, very possible. And Jeon Silva is one of the best guys in the world right now at that weight class. But you see the problem there. Like, where's your ceiling? And then we've got Costa. And Melky Costa, only 29, on a heck of a streak. I mean, he had a tough debut against Thiago Moises. He beat Austin Lingo. He got knocked out by Steve Garcia up at lightweight. Came back to featherweight and hasn't looked back. He beat up Shaila Nurdunbeke. He beat up Andre Fili. He beat Christian Rodriguez. Beat Julian Erosa. Head kicked Morgan Charrier. TKO'd Dan Ige with a wicked spinning back kick to the face. Is Melky the dark horse of featherweight? Yeah, I kind of think he is. He's young, as I said, not even 30, really getting dialed in, real skills. This is a really good fight. It's very informative for his future. It's very informative figuring out where we're at with Arnold Allen. It's a really, really good fight. I'm very happy that it's here. It's a good main event for this kind of card. This is the only fight I'm going to be universally positive on this whole card, by the way, but I will be because it deserves it. I've got to be honest. It's great. It's a really good fight. Glad it's 5 rounds. It's the kind of fight I'm okay with main eventing the warehouse card. You could even take this on the road to a smaller market and be just fine main eventing with this, I think. Like, it's a good fight. The odds slightly favor Allen. Not quite 2-1. Minus 150 to minus 190, somewhere in that range. I understand that. I think that's even fair. And frankly, if this were a 3-round fight, I would be inclined to agree. I think 5 rounds with a guy like Melky Costa is tough. He's real good about maintaining range, and he's real good about just making everything hurt. Some guys, man, everything hurts. He's one of them. Allen has good calf kicks and really solid fundamentals, but I am actually going to go with Costa on this one. Maybe I'm still riding a little bit high after the perfect predictions from 328, and I'm going to be a little bit lax on this one, but I like Melky Costa here. I do. I think it's a really, I think conventional beats unconventional a lot of the times, but if you're going to beat a conventional guy, being unconventional is the way to go about it too. Tristan chiming in. Allen isn't dangerous at all, so low volume. There's a little bit of truth there. He's very methodical, is the way I would put it. And that does leave room to be outworked numerically. Oh, Sal figured it out. Ex-Jet Anthony Witt to compete in the Contender Series in August. Okay. Yeah, they're desperately trying to revive heavyweight. It needs all the help it can get, but I don't know. Yeah, what is Allen's finishing rate? Since you brought that up. He TKO Calvin Kattar suffered a knee injury in their fight. That sucked. He stopped Dan Hooker with elbows. That's not nothing. He choked out Mads Burnell. And he got a choke win in his UFC debut, but 3 finishes. 4 if you want to count the Kattar injury. So hang on. So 1, 2. So call it 3.5. In a lot of UFC fights, yeah, he's not much of a finisher. In 14 UFC fights, he's got, again, 4 if we want to be super charitable. Yeah, not much of a finish threat. Yeah, of his 7 TKO wins, only 2 have come in the UFC. Most of those were, not much of a finish threat. And somewhat by contrast, Melky Costa is very much trying to end you. Doesn't always succeed, but let me have a quick look at Melky. He's gone the distance a few times in the UFC. Lingo went the distance. Christian Rodriguez went the distance. Julian Erosa went the distance. But that's it. He's only got 3 decisions in the UFC. Yeah, he's dangerous and a real threat to end things. Allen is very methodical and has a lot less finishes. Over 5 rounds, I'm going with Costa. I will eat that loss if I'm wrong. Our co-main event is also not bad. I'm not going to be universally positive about this one, but this is not a bad fight. The Korean Superboy, Doo-Ho Choi, takes on Daniel Santos. Now, Choi had a rough return to the UFC after his military. He went out. He had to leave the UFC for his mandatory military service. He went out on that fight of the night / fight of the year. It's a Hall of Fame fight now with Cub Swanson. Came back and he's been struggling. He lost to Jeremy Stevens. He lost to Charles Jourdain. Went to a draw with Kyle Nelson, but his last 2 fights, he's kind of got back on the horse a little bit. Why does UFC force Daniel Santos to fight all the Korean featherweights? I don't know. Maybe he prefers it that way. So Choi TKO'd Bell Gio, and then he TKO'd Nate Landwehr. Those aren't bad wins. Santos, the Wily Cat. His UFC run has been a loss to Julio Arce. He beat John Castaneda, beat Johnny Munoz. His last 2 fights were Jung Young Lee and Ju Sung Yu. Yeah, he's been fighting the Koreans recently. I don't know. That's an interesting thing to point out there, because the Lee win was pretty solid. Let me remind myself of which Lee Jung Young Lee is. Oh yeah, the Korean Tiger. That was okay. Yeah, again, that was solid. The Yu win, because that's Jiu-Jitsu, right? No, that's Zombie Jr. That was actually a solid win for him, because Zombie Jr. is pretty good. The question at this point is like whether Santos is ready for a guy. Choi's a lot more seasoned than the guys he's been fighting recently. The odds like Santos, I will respect the odds, but I'm asterisking this one. There's a couple of things I got to double check about Choi's return, and the last 2 Santos fights, I need to refresh my memory on them. But if he wins again, he can change his nickname to like the Korean Killer, the Korean Hunter or something. I don't know. Korean Killer seems a bit, I don't know. Doesn't quite have the right ring to it to me. Like, it's alliterative and nice, but something feels off about it. So that's a solid fight. That's going to be fun. That's going to rouse the, couple of hundred people or however many they cram into the Apex these days. I'm not complaining too much about that fight. That's fine. After that, oh boy, here we go. Bantamweight Malcolm Wellmaker and Juan Diaz. So Wellmaker's coming off of that loss to Ethan Ewing. Diaz has a good record, 15-1-1, 8-fight winning streak coming into his UFC debut off a Contender Series win. I think Wellmaker's probably got more upside when it's all said and done. Yeah, the odds like Wellmaker. This is a pretty big step up for Diaz, all things considered. So I'll respect the odds and go with Wellmaker. Terrible light heavyweight fight next. Modestas Bukauskas and Adolfo Bellato, and the only losers will be the fans. Bukauskas, what's he done recently? Just had a 4-fight winning streak broken by Nikita Krylov. That was a not great fight. Bellato probably shouldn't be in the UFC, but he was losing to Luke Fernandez, but then found a left hook and was able to get the win. I don't pick Bellato to win fights. It is just kind of how I am about this. UKAUSKS. Okay. I don't feel great picking Modestas Bukauskas to win either, by the way, but I don't pick Bellato to win. I don't think he's that good. Timmy Kwamba and Bernardo Sopai. Okay. Might be a little something there. For warehouse fights, this is an okay one. Kwamba 10-3, 2-2 in the UFC, but 2-fight winning streak. Beat Roberto Romero and Jung Ho Lee. So kind of on his way, showing a few decent things. Sopai 12-3, 1-1 in the UFC. Lost. Oh yeah, Lockdog kneed him into oblivion. I remember that. That was brutal. He then missed the rest of 24. Fought in January of 25 when he beat Ricky Tercios. He's been out for a year. Well, I watched the live, the Road to UFC stuff. I might. Depends when on Thursday. I know the day, but like I depends on the time. I don't have all day Thursday free. And I don't get paid for this. I do this because I enjoy it, and that's fine. I'm okay with it, but 6 a.m. Eastern. So that's 4 a.m. my time. I don't know. Have to see how Wednesday goes. I will probably look it up after the fact, if nothing else. The Road to UFC is actually one of the better things the UFC puts out. I really like it. So minimum, I will know what happened, but live, we'll see how I feel. Like, long days are a thing for me nowadays that I'm not as young as I used to be. That stretch a couple of 2 weeks ago when I had to do the UFC event in Perth when they started at like 2 a.m. my time. That wound up being a 22-hour day for me when it was all said and done. Between what I do Friday, that, and then stuff I had to do Saturday morning. Like, that was a long day. And I can still do it, but when I was in my 20s, easy. When I was in my early 30s, fairly easy. Now, father time does no jobs, as the saying goes. So anyway, Kwamba and Sopai will probably be an okay fight. The odds are with Sopai. That layoff is bothering me. Sopai looked pretty decent in his win, but dude, you've been out for over a year, almost a year and a half. Like, disturbingly close to 18 months. Let me lean Kwamba. I'm going to asterisk this one too, which is a weird one to do, I know, but let me throw an asterisk on that one. I got to remind myself a little bit about Sopai's last win, because it wasn't bad off the top of my head, but it's been enough time and I've seen enough fights that have all kind of blended together that I am unsure. See, next. I think next will be Chaos Williams and Nikolai Veretennikov. It's probably going to suck. Veretennikov is 14-7. I think he just got his first UFC win, right? Second. He's 2-3 in the UFC. He had a split decision over Francisco Prado. He's coming off a win over Nico Price. It was a Price like one fight before retirement. I don't know how much I rate that. Williams, I don't know. 15-5. He's been out for a minute too. He hasn't won since he beat Carlston Harris in 24. Yeah, the Cass Williams doesn't throw much, but when he lands, man, he does damage. Like, that dude hits like a truck. But he lost to Gabriel Bonfim, had a couple of fights fall out, lost to Andreas Gustafsson. And that was June of last year. So he's been out. Hasn't had a lot of fights fall out either. That is. Thing is, Veretennikov's hittable. And if Williams can hit you, he can do damage. The layoff, again, is kind of going to be my tipping point towards Veretennikov, but I don't feel good about that. Tuco Tokos is fighting Ivan Urslan. God help us all. What do we do to deserve this? Tokos 11-5, 1-2 in the UFC. He lost to Umar Sy and Navajo Sterling. Then he beat Junior Tafa in July of last year. Urslan is 14-6. Oh, right. He's that stocky Croatian guy who is 0-3 in the UFC. Losses to Iwan Kutalaba, Navajo Sterling, and Jimmy Crute. He's moving up to heavyweight here. Or is this still light heavyweight? No, this is still light heavyweight, excuse me. Tuco's been training in the Chimaev camp with Brendan Allen and Beisingers. Yeah. I'm sure it won't hurt him too much. I think I just don't pick Urslan at this point. But man, Toko sucks. Both these guys suck. The odds are with Urslan. That's interesting. Again, Tokos is not good. Like neither of these. I don't know how I would handicap this one. Like they both suck. Don't bet on it. I'm gonna buck the odds again here. I'm gonna asterisk this one just because I may wake up and go, "What the hell were you thinking?" But let me go with the dog. With the dog there. I'll go with Tokos. Again, I may wake up tomorrow and go, "You really picked that guy?" But I mean, it's Ivo Urslan. Like I could flip a coin and be fine with this one. Trey Ogden and Thomas Gant. Let's see. Ogden, 18-7. 3-3 with one no contest over his UFC run. He's on his second stint in the UFC, right? I feel like he was here once and then. No, I'm mistaking him. Do I think Trey Gilly is live? I have to double check who you mean by that. Unless you mean this guy, like, do I think he's a live dog? I don't know. What are the odds? The odds are with Gant fairly heavily. Look, Ogden's not great. Coming off a loss to Thiago Moises, his wins are Kurt Holobo and Loic Radzhabov. Lost to Ignacio Bahamondes. Well, he beat Daniel Zellhuber, which he lost to Jordan Levitt. So I went backwards through his career. Okay, you're dropping to Thiago Moises. I think that puts a pretty serious ceiling on you at this point. Gant, 11-0, 11-0, one no contest. Is he like some hotshot wrestler? Yeah, he is. Yeah, I'll respect the odds on this one. I don't think Ogden is some bum, but I think they're aware what they want to get out of Gant. Ranked bantamweights on the women's side, which the UFC had a bunch of fights events in a row without a female fight on them. They're probably looking at like half phasing out women's MMA in the near future. It just hasn't been producing. The talent hasn't been developing. I think Valentina Shevchenko was reading some tea leaves earlier than a lot of us when, like, 2 years ago or so, she was advocating for like the division being good. We all kind of laughed like, no, it's not as good as, strawweight, and it wasn't, but I think she was trying to like, no, this is a worthwhile endeavor. Please continue to do it. Ketlin Vieira and Jacqueline Cavalcante. Vieira's been a tough roadblock for a lot of women, but Cavalcante is actually not terrible. Vieira, let's have a quick look. 15-5. Coming off a loss to Norma Dumont. Oh, God, that was such a bad fight. She let that just completely get away from her. She beat Macy Chasson, but missed weight. She lost to Kayla Harrison. Oh, no, you lost to Kayla Harrison. Whatever will we do? She did lose to Raquel Pennington, though, and split or not, that's rough. Cavalcante 10-1. She's on a decent winning streak, right? Yeah, 8 fights, 5-0 in the UFC. Beat Zara Fern, Josiane Nunes, Nora Cornola. That shouldn't have been split. Julia Avila and Myra Buena Silva. Cavalcante seems like she's on the way up. Vieira's trying to hold on, but I wonder if things aren't passing her by. I've been decently impressed with Cavalcante. I don't mind going with her. I will not be shocked at all if Ketlin Vieira wins that fight again. Vieira's been a real stubborn roadblock, but she's also faltered at some of those key moments when like she could have broken through. Cody Brundage and Andre Petrosky, that will probably suck. I don't like picking Petrosky, but I don't pick Cody Brundage as a general point of order. Brundage is 11-9-1, also with a no contest, 3-fight losing streak. Losses to Eric McConico, Cam Roston, and Dante Johnson. Before that, he had a draw with Mansour Abdul Malik. His last win was over Julian Marquez in 25, over a year ago. Petrosky's not super good either, 13-5. He's been with the UFC for a bit, but he never developed into anything. 2-fight losing streak to Edmund Shabazian and Cam Roston. Under most circumstances, I would not pick Petrosky, but I think he's probably better than Cody Brundage. If he loses to Cody Brundage, I'm never picking Andre Petrosky to win another fight. Let's see. Alice Ardelian and Poliana Viana. Odds like Ardelian. That's probably fair. She's 11-7. 2-2 in the UFC. 2-fight winning streak. Wins over Jaime Dos Santos and Montserrat Ruiz. Viana's 13-8. 3-fight losing streak. She's only 4-7 in the UFC. Good grief. Lost to Yasmin Lucindo, Jillian Robertson, and Jacqueline Amorim. Yeah, I am okay going with Ardelian here. If Poliana didn't get so many tattoos, she'd be better off. I'm not familiar with the correlation between tattooing and fight results. And I don't know. Maybe she's... I hate to be glib about the financial plight of fighters, but if being inked up gets her more, people paying attention to her, then far be it from me to overly comment. Whatever my personal tastes happen to be, that's less tattooing equals more training. Okay. Then again, like Sean Brady's all inked up with really great Japanese work, and look, he's doing. Toporia's got ink and a fair amount of it. And there's some guys that have basically none. I mean, GSP had a couple of small ones. I don't think Anderson had any. So could kind of go either way. Let's see, Daniel Barres and Luis Gurule. Poor Gurule. Guy can't catch a break. 10-3, 0-3 in the UFC. Lost to Ode Osborne, Jesus Aguilar, and Alden Correa. That Correa loss was not good. Then again, like Barres hasn't set the world on fire. 17-7, 1-2 in the UFC. He's been out of action for a year or so. He lost to Jafel Filio, beat Victor Altamirano, lost to Andre Lima. Filio's kind of a one-round wonder, but he got him in the first round. Lima's solid. This is probably Barres. Garule's not a bad fighter, but like I said, that dude just can't catch a break. So I'll go with Barres. And kicking everything off, we have. Oh wait, we're not kicking everything off yet. My apologies. We have Shauna Bannon and Nicole Cagliari. I don't think Shauna Bannon's all that good. She's 2-2 in the UFC. She should not have got the decision over Alisar Dolyan. She barely got by Pooja Tomar, who's not that good. I don't think Shauna Bannon is all that good. Cagliari, let's take a quick look over there. 8-4. 0-2 in the UFC, lost to Ernesta Carrascaita and Carly Judice. Neither of these women are all that good is kind of what we're landing on here. Odds like Cagliari, again, I don't think Bannon's all that good. Yeah, I'll respect that. I just don't think I pick Shauna Bannon to win fights. Am I previewing MVP MMA 1? I can. Like, let me do that after I get done with this. Well, hang on. When is that card? That might be a next week thing. May 16th. No, that is this Saturday. Yeah, let me do it after this. When we get done previewing this, I'll throw a quick preview that way. I wasn't sure if it was this week or next week, but I will throw that out there. And Jeremiah Wells was supposed to have a fight. He does not have an opponent. I will see if they replace that, whether I will pick that or not. And yeah, so that is the card. Let me save my spreadsheet. Then close that. I'm not gonna count my predictions for the MVP event, but yeah, I'll throw a preview that way in a sec. So that will be for, Saturday, MMA Zone of 411mania.com. I will be covering the UFC event, so stop by, say hello. I always appreciate that. So let me. I'll fix my camera in a sec. I promise. Come on. There we go. Nope. Come on. Focus. Focus. Come on. You can do this, camera. Because nobody wants to see me blurry. Come on. Wiki. There we go. All right. Let me see if I can find that full card. And I will throw a quick preview towards it. Okay. Rousey Carano. Pretty easy Ronda Rousey pick. Carano's 40. She hasn't fought in like 17 years. Look, I'm not going to be like completely surprised if Ronda falls apart when she gets hit a few times because she's had concussion issues, but my hunch is like Gina's over the hill. Like I hope she can kind of like revitalize some of her stuff off of this, like not just fighting, but like her acting career, because I don't think she's a terrible actress. Like she's not, Helen Mirren or anything, but she's not bad. Hopefully she can, kind of get some stuff rolling again off of this. But like Ronda's fought better people, Ronda's beaten better people, Ronda's achieved at a higher level in every bit of athletic competition than Gina has. Like it's not hard to throw a Ronda pick there. Nate Diaz and Mike Perry. That's not a bad fight. Am I really going to check the odds on this just for the sake of my own amusement? The odds are actually with Perry. That's interesting. That's largely going to come down to who gets cut worse. Diaz is very hittable, but Perry's bare knuckle stuff has kind of changed how he strikes when he has to wear gloves a little bit in some ways that I don't think are all that advantageous. Nate doesn't hit hard enough to really bother Perry, but Nate's got volume on his side. I'd probably lean Diaz a little bit here. See, that's against the odds, but I would go with Diaz. Francis Ngannou and Felipe Lins. In what world would I pick Felipe Lins to beat Francis Ngannou? France is going to kill that guy. He's just going to bomb on him and murder him. Because Francis is still the lineal heavyweight champion and probably still the best heavyweight in MMA. Saladin Parnasse and Kenny Cross. That's actually a very good fight. Do I think the UFC will sign Saladin Parnasse if he gets a big finish? Depends on what his deal is with MVP. If he's with them for more than one fight, unlikely. The UFC should have signed him a while ago. They cheaped out on him and a couple of guys out of KSW. Like, the UFC is cheap about talent acquisition these days because they're just miserly penny pinching. They'll pay off debt and enrich suits at the top of the corporate ladder who don't do anything to actually earn their money for the most of the time. Again, they should. Saladin Parnasse is really good. He's been really good for a while. Kenny Cross, though, like, that dude is no joke. He's been doing some really solid work on the American regional scene. He's 17-4. He's got a Contender Series win. The UFC didn't sign him. He's wrecked a few people on XFC. His last loss was in Bellator in 2023. Yeah, he's real good. That's a real good fight. Like, of all the fights on this card, like, what's the most legitimate one? Like, Parnasse and Cross. Like, that's a real fight. That's a real, not the others are like rigged or anything, but Rousey and Carano's kind of a gimmick. A successful one, but kind of gimmicky. Diaz and Perry is two over-the-hill old guys who just have a reputation for violence, and God bless, I'm going to enjoy it. And Ngannou's here to kill a guy and talk crap about the UFC. Parnasse and Cross are both two guys who are very, very good right now and getting better. The odds are big with, I would not. Look, I'm going to pick Saladin Parnasse, but anybody sitting with Kenny Cross is like plus 500 in that fight is kind of, I'd be sweating that. I would be sweating those odds. I don't think he's that big a favorite. Junior Dos Santos and Rebellis to Spain. I love JDS. Like, happy dude. One of the few good guys in the sport. I loved his ascent to the belt. Like, his run to the belt and until he lost it is one of the most impressive heavyweight runs we've ever seen. Not the most, but one of. He was murking guys. If JDS wrestles, he wins because Rebellis to Spain got out-wrestled by Waldo Cortez Acosta. I don't know what else to tell you, but JDS is also washed. His chin is shot. And there's a non-trivial chance he's going to walk into a check left hook and just fall over. Again, I love Junior. I really do. But he's shot. I mean, that man took a couple of two career-altering beatings from Kane in fairly short succession. Like, I love the guy. He's one of the better. He's another one of those, like, sadly forgotten heavyweights. Because he had a fairly decent career post-title. Like, he still beat good guys. And actually fought for the belt again. But, I mean, respectfully to the man, He's on a 5-fight losing streak, and he's 42 years old. Like, he's got a couple of bare knuckle wins over Fabricio and Alan Belcher, but the last time he fought in MMA was 2022, and his shoulder separated fighting Jorgen De Castro. I hope I'm wrong. I am rooting for JDS. Big time. Like, no result on this card could make me happier than JDS winning. But you can't pick the guy at this point. I'm sorry. Let's see. Namo. Then we get into a bunch of like smaller stuff. Namo Fazil and Jake Bobian. I'd have to go with just the odds on on most of these. Hang on. So, okay, here's the other ones worth paying attention to. Adriano Moraes was supposed to fight Muhammad Makayev. Makayev couldn't get into the country, had visa issues. He's fighting a late replacement, Fumi Nukta. Adriano Moraes is pretty good. He's not like the best, but you shouldn't sleep on him. The ass-kicking machine, Jason Jackson, is fighting Jeff Creighton. Jason Jackson's pretty good. He's fun. You have David Magoyan as your lock. He is. Let's have a quick look here at this Armenian. 8-1. Very junior in his career. Has a loss to Tommy McMillan on the Contender Series. Majority decision. Okay. He's fighting again Albert Morales, who is 19-10-1. He went 1-4-1 in the UFC. That was a while ago. He also has losses to Patchy Mix. What did he lose to in the UFC? Thomas Almeida. He got a split decision win over Andre Sukumtat. He had a draw with Alejandro Perez. Lost to Brett Johns, Benito Lopez, Manny Bermudez. He lost on that Liddell Ortiz card that Golden Boy put on. Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I'd be careful throwing lock around in MMA, but I get where you're coming from with that one. Do I think Muhammad Makayev would beat Josh Van? He might, stylistically. Makayev, that said, like Makayev had not responded well to being hit. And if Van could be smart enough to not give up his back to Makayev, I think it could have played out very similarly to the Taira fight. Would be a good fight. I mean, like the only guy I think that I pretty clearly at flyweight wouldn't pick or would pick to beat Makayev, like just without thinking too much about it, would be Pantoja. Okay, Tristan chiming also with the David McGoyan as a lock. I'm careful with locks in MMA as a general rule, but given who he's fighting, like Morales is one of those guys who gets on cards because he and Chris Avila do the same thing, like kind of tight with the Diaz brothers. So if a Diaz is on the card and has any say over it, one of their boys is going to be there. Eileen Pereira, who I am convinced of this, by the way, that when the UFC signed Alice Pereira, they thought they were getting Eileen Pereira because Eileen Pereira is Alex Pereira's sister. And Alice Pereira sucks. Pereira's fighting Jade Masson Wong. Pereira's had mixed results in MMA, but she did some okay work in karate combat, to the extent that you want to consider karate combat a legitimate promotion, which, given some of their matchmaking tendencies these days, I think they should probably be shut down. Probably Pereira. And then Chris Avila and Brandon Jenkins, who could possibly care? Chris Avila is not good. He got around because he was one of the Diaz, trained with the Diaz brothers. He got 2 fights in the UFC and failed miserably both times. I mean, dude lost to Artem Lobov and Enrique Barzola. Like, he's not good at this. He had slightly more success when he went to just boxing. Then he lost an exhibition boxing match to Benson Henderson. Yeah, he hasn't had an MMA fight since fighting John Kennedy in 21. He's just not very good at this. And is Brandon Jenkins Bubba? Is Bubba Jenkins? Or that, no, that's somebody else. Brandon Jenkins, 16 and 11. He kind of got drummed out of the UFC a while ago. Yeah, lost to Rong Zhu and Drakkar Close. Gave boxing a few tries, had done some bare knuckle stuff, did some karate combat stuff. His last MMA fight was losing to Zach Jusola in PFL in 23. He'll probably win here because he's fighting Chris Avila, but I don't know. I don't know how much optimism I have for MVP. Dude, there's been no buzz for this. Like, if Ronda's not out there barking, nobody's talking about this thing. It's kind of weird. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see if Fight Week ups that at all. It might. And, Ronda's star power may not quite be what it used to be, but she still has reach that no one does. No one else in MMA has had the breadth of reach that she did. Ronda's too cringe to listen to. Depends on what she's talking about. Like, I get that her delivery is off-putting and she's just very, very angry for reasons that I'm not entirely sure about, other than like personally feeling slighted that the UFC wasn't going to overpay for her in 2026. But a lot of the issues she raises are not wrong, and that's it. Like, would I ever like sit down and listen to a long interview with her or whatnot? No. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like, listening to her talk long for any length of time is annoying. And she and Kayla Harrison are kind of half chirping at each other, and nothing's ever going to come of that either. So, yeah, I don't blame you for not caring that much. All right. That is going to do my brief. That's going to be my brief preview of the MVP card. Kai Tong versus Shamil Gasanov is not bad. Yeah, that's true. That's not bad. I wish one wasn't, a mess. Because I like their rule set. I like 4-ounce Muay Thai. But they're on the brink of going under. And some of that was avoidable. A lot of it wasn't. It's just the MMA landscape these days. But no, that's a good fight. Look, when they just do some of their kickboxing stuff, they've got some good guys over there in the kickboxing realm. They just operate poorly and with very exploitative deals. But no, as far as like just as a fight, you're right. Like Gasanov and Tong, yeah, that's a good one. I may look that up after the fact. It's the single one fight I'm most looking forward to this weekend. It's a toss-up between Parnasse and Cross and Allen and Costa. It's one of those two. Ask me tomorrow, I might give you a different answer about which one. But I think those are the two best fights. For whatever that's worth. All right. Let me do a couple of quick news items here and then get out of here because we've been going at this for over 2 hours. And it's like 2:30 in the morning where I am. So I do need sleep at some point. Alrighty. Up the timestamp. And So this made a little bit of waves, and it kind of fueled the thought that the UFC is about ready to deal away with women's MMA, or at least wildly scale it back. Larissa Pacheco reached out to see if she could come to the UFC, and the UFC was like, "No, thanks." Guys, Larissa Pacheco's good. She had a bit of time in the UFC earlier in her career. Went okay. She got cut, and or didn't. She wanted. I don't remember if she was cut or just not re-signed, but either way, she's done. She's the only woman to beat Kayla Harrison, and she's got a real good record. She's if you were serious about signing good quality female fighters, you would sign Larissa Pacheco. They're not, because the UFC is, again, man, women's MMA has not made it easy on the UFC recently. There has not been the level of talent development and talent influx necessary to really sustain it. And in fairness to the UFC, like again, in fairness to the UFC, that's not just a UFC problem. That's been a problem for like heavyweight MMA globally is rough. Women's MMA globally is has not it developed fairly quickly at a certain point, but then plateaued very, very hard. Kayla's in denial about the Pacheco loss. When you're hyper competitive like that, is almost like pathologically competitive, that's how you kind of are. I mean, I prefer my fighters to be more introspective and grounded in reality, but I accept that, like, dude, Kayla's the best judoka the United States has ever produced. She's a back-to-back Olympic gold medalist. The what you got to do up here to yourself to get to that point is serious. Um, Plus, she did beat Pacheco the first time they fought. Like, I wouldn't hate a third fight between them, but again, at a minimum, they'd have to do it at 145. I don't think Kayla can do 135 more than the one time she's going to do it for the Nunes fight. Because, good Lord, that weight cut kills her. Like, she's damaging her body seriously to do that. But yeah, again, I wouldn't hate another fight, third fight between Kayla and Pacheco. But yeah, there's a lot of fighters that do weird stuff to themselves mentally in the wake of losses like that just refuse to. Some of them are more understandable than others. Like, again, Kayla kind of being in denial about that. Like, yeah, I get it. Connor out here going, no, my MMA record has only 2 losses because I don't count decisions or submission losses. The only thing that matters is if you knocked me out. He's a buffoon. Like, that you can't take seriously. But yeah, so the UFC not interested in signing Larissa Pacheco, which is not a good sign for what they think about the future of women's MMA in the promotion. Is kind of the point there. Okay, last thing. UFC Baku. The UFC is going back to Azerbaijan because they got another giant site fee, I assume. Okay, this. You need to go over there. I can do this over here. We know, I think, the entire card at this point. This is for June 27th. The main event will be. Do I think the UFC didn't announce the McGregor fight to make Ariel Helwani look bad? I wouldn't put it past them, but no. I think the UFC and Conor are not all that close to coming to financial terms. I think Conor wants a lot of money because there's no more pay-per-view. And he's one of the only guys who actually draws pay-per-view. And he wants to be compensated for that with more money. And the UFC is going to lowball him and they're going to argue about it. And I don't know how much the UFC really cares to bring Conor back at all at this point. The dude's been out of action forever. Went out on his last fight with a major injury and has had nothing but really terrible, terrible PR and terrible, terrible things said about him and arguably proven about him in the interim. I think they're just struggling to get that done. Would I put it past them to be that petty about, making Ariel Helwani look bad? No, I wouldn't put it past them at all. But I think they'd rather have the buzz about Conor being back, and if Ariel got to kind of scoop them, who cares? Conor's back. Again, I wouldn't say it's impossible by any stretch of the imagination, but I think they'd be very anxious to get that news out there. I mean, they would have done it at the numbered event if they had it done. That was a big event. Like somebody pointed this out, like the numbers for the people watching the pre-fight press conference for 328 were bigger than every other press conference for numbered events for the UFC all year combined, which is more about how dismal the excitement was for everything the UFC's done to this point in the year. But that's the biggest platform they've had. They might try to save it for the White House, but at that point, you're announcing it super close to the fight. I don't know. I genuinely think like they're just struggling to make a deal with Conor for any number of reasons. Anyway, the Azerbaijan card main event will be native Azerbaijani Rafael Fiziev and Manuel Torres. Good fight. Also on that card, I think the co-main event will be Shara Magomedov and Michelle Pereira. Don't care. Michal Lukashevich and Abus Magomedov. That's not bad. The Hulk, Bruno Ferreira and Ikram Alaskarov. I don't hate that. A lot of the regular suspects are here. Nursultan Rozboyev and Andrei Pulayev. Marvin Vittori and Ismail Narudiev. Another I'm kind of over Vittori. Asu Almabayev and Charles Johnson. Good fight. Julius Walker and Abdul Rahman Yakhyayev. Meh. Like I get what they think they have with Yakhyayev, but he showed some weirdness his last fight. In ways that made me go, "Oh, you really have a long way to go." Beksat Almakhan and Jean Matsumoto. I like Jean Matsumoto, so that'll probably be fun. Rizvan Kuniev and Tyrell Fortune. Nazim Sadikov and Mateusz Camilo. That's not terrible. Sadikov's not a bad fighter. And then Danil Donchenko and Andreas Gustafsson. Donchenko's kind of a madman. His fights are kind of wild and bloody. So, you know what? That's not a bad fight night card. It'll air at some ungodly hour because, of course, it will. But for that's not a bad card. That's a fairly strong fight night card. Thumbs up on that. I think I've heard a few people mention that, like that level, that not the UFC numbered events have been way up and down all year, more down than up. The warehouse fights mostly are warehouse fights, but this level, when the UFC takes a fight night on the road, these have mostly been good on paper and pretty solid in delivery. Not universally great, but like this is the one area of the UFC's machine that at the moment is kind of dialed in. So we have that one, and that I think is all the time I have for the moment. So I'm going to check the old social media feed, see if anything crazy has happened. This is your last chance to throw a question in there if I haven't addressed anything you'd like me to address thus far, and it's reasonable and reasonably on topic. Oh yeah, let me just about the striking rate of Joshua Van. He is landing strikes at a legitimately unprecedented rate. He is the fastest fighter to land 1,000 significant strikes. And again, at the same number of fight minutes in the cage, he is outlanded by a non-trivial margin Max Holloway, who has the, of course, overall highest number. Yeah, it's nuts. That is just nutty. Let's have a look. If there's anything fight related. No, not really. Manel Kopp currently favored over Joshua Van. Early odds, the like prediction thing, have Kopp like minus 200. Stylistically, I get favoring Kopp, but 2-1. Not sure I agree with that. Let's see. I don't think I have anything new here fight related. All right. Nope. I think that's going to do it for this episode. Okay. Last question here. Does Prochess get the next shot over Ian Gary? He might. I would still kind of rather it was Gary, but because I think Gary's earned it. And Gary has a win over Prochess. But if I am not going to be shocked one iota if they make Prochess and Makhachev. Whether that's, they can say whatever they want. Maybe they can't make a deal with Ian. Maybe who knows. But my hunch is they're going to go with Gary and Makhachev. But you would be foolish to discount Prochess getting the next shot. It's definitely possible. All right. On that note, let's do some plugs. So, come on, camera. I don't need you to be like this for me today. Okay. Monday on Damn You Hollywood, I will be reviewing Mortal Kombat 2 along with Mark Radulich and Jason Teasley. Haven't seen it yet. We'll see it tomorrow before I review it. I did not care for the most recent Mortal Kombat movie. Part of that was the severe dental pain I was in at the time. Part of it was 80% of that movie is just not very good. The opening bit and the last fight between Scorpion and Sub-Zero, those are good. Pretty much everything else sucks. And I'm happy to make that point and die on that hill if necessary, but we'll see how 2 plays out. It's getting mixed reviews, but the people being negative about it are being negative about it for reasons that I think are things the movie should lean into. So who knows? We'll see. So tune in for that. Let's see. I don't think I have any other podcasts this week. That's not me. No. Okay. So Friday, I will be covering WWE SmackDown, which is a chore these days. That show, man. It's not good. It's just not a good 3 hours of wrestling television. You can find spots that are good, like segments that are pretty good, but it's just not very good. But I'll be covering it because I'm a professional. And of course, Saturday, the UFC event. So check those out in the wrestling and MMA zones of 411mania.com. Throw a like and a subscribe and a comment on this video. I thank you to everyone who's been watching live, who's done anything approximating that. Anyone who's been watching live who's done none of that but has just been here to listen. I'm fine with that too. I cast no judgment on how you choose to interact with this stuff. Lord knows there's plenty of stuff I just watch and don't interact with either. So, but anything you can do, of course, is always helpful and deeply, deeply appreciated. I will be back next week. We will review Allen versus Costa and we will preview, right? No, there is no event the 23rd. Huh. Alrighty then. No preview next week, just a review. Good to know. The next UFC event is Fight Night 277. They're in Macau. It's headlined by Song Yadong and Davison Figueiredo. It's not a bad fight. What else is on that card? Zhang Mingyang and Alonzo Manifield. Who cares? Sergey Pavlovich and Taliesin Teixeira. See previous statement. Kaya Sakura's returned to bantamweight against Cameron Smotherman. That's not bad. Perez and Simudarji. Muslim Salikov and Jake Matthews isn't bad. Yeah, that's going to be kind of a rough. There's some rough stretches on that card, some real rough stretches. But well, we'll preview that in a couple of weeks. So next week, just a review, and we'll see what happens between now and then. Someone chiming in with Jim F. and Miller. Darn right. You're darn right. I sincerely hope that when Jim Miller says this is my last fight, Buffer finally gives him the proper intro and just says it's Jim fucking Miller. I'm Tristan. Next one, UFC Macau. Yeah, the Wrong Jew and Victor Martinez one. I don't know about live. Again, those are just like very, very early in the morning. But some of those I just have to see how it goes. I like the Road to UFC events. I like the tournament they have. It's a good. That is a good product the UFC puts out. That's all I can tell you. And even if I don't watch it live, I do tend to make a point of watching it after the fact. So that's it for me, everybody. Thank you all very, very much for tuning in. It is early in the morning here, and I'm ready for bed. So thank you. Stay safe out there as always. And until next time, continue to be well, be safe, and behave. See you around.